Mr. Chairman. So Markwayne, I'm going to use my time completely different than how I was going to when I walked into this hearing. I can't top what Senator Moreno, the comments he made about how unconscionable it is that we're not funding and we're not providing paychecks to those 260,000 men and women that you will be soon leading. Other than working with no labels, we don't serve on the same committees, have never gone on Codell together, and that's oftentimes how you get to know our colleagues. So I don't know you as well as some of the other people on the dais here. Certainly within conference, we've seen each other interact. We share a couple things in common. I think we're both pretty passionate about our love for this country, about trying to fix the enormous messes left behind by President Biden, Democrats. We wear emotions on our sleeves. But I will say that I've been here 15 years. I've been through a lot of confirmation hearings. I've listened to a lot of nominees. I've heard a lot of introductions. If one of your first decisions as a nominee was to pick the person to introduce you, you couldn't have done a better job. I mean, the introduction from Senator Langford was probably one of the most genuine and heartfelt I've ever heard. And I will say your opening statement was probably one of the more genuine and heartfelt testimonies I've ever heard, if not the most. I'm looking behind you at the people who have come here to support you, your former colleagues in the House, Chairman Smith, a former Speaker of the House, Senator Britt. But I see Josh Gottheimer there. He's not a Republican member of the House. He's a Democrat. I've seen you interact with him trying to get some permitting reform. Please, briefly, because I want you to tell another story here yet, but just talk a little bit about your relationship with Josh and other members of the House.
This is something you don't see every day in Washington. In the middle of a heated political environment, a Republican senator pauses everything, not to attack, not to debate, but to tell a personal, emotional story about friendship, family, and what really matters. And what he reveals about Donald Trump. The media definitely doesn't want you hearing this. Let's break it down.
Mr. Chairman. So Markwayne, I'm going to use my time completely different than how I was going to when I walked into this hearing. I can't top what Senator Moreno, the comments he made about how unconscionable it is that we're not funding and we're not providing paychecks to those 260,000 men and women that you will be soon leading. Other than working with no labels, we don't serve on the same committees, have never gone on Codell together, and that's oftentimes how you get to know our colleagues. So I don't know you as well as some of the other people on the dais here. Certainly within conference, we've seen each other interact. We share a couple things in common. I think we're both pretty passionate about our love for this country, about trying to fix the enormous messes left behind by President Biden, Democrats. We wear emotions on our sleeves. But I will say that I've been here 15 years. I've been through a lot of confirmation hearings. I've listened to a lot of nominees. I've heard a lot of introductions. If one of your first decisions as a nominee was to pick the person to introduce you, you couldn't have done a better job. I mean, the introduction from Senator Langford was probably one of the most genuine and heartfelt I've ever heard. And I will say your opening statement was probably one of the more genuine and heartfelt testimonies I've ever heard, if not the most. I'm looking behind you at the people who have come here to support you, your former colleagues in the House, Chairman Smith, a former Speaker of the House, Senator Britt. But I see Josh Gottheimer there. He's not a Republican member of the House. He's a Democrat. I've seen you interact with him trying to get some permitting reform. Please, briefly, because I want you to tell another story here yet, but just talk a little bit about your relationship with Josh and other members of the House.
Josh and I, we may not always agree on every issue, but he's a friend. And And our relationship started back in 2017 when he thought I was a staff member running a workout group, because I've been running a bipartisan workout group that started actually with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Jason Smith 13 years ago. And I still do that to this day. When he came in 17, Joe Kennedy, who is also a friend of mine, he approached him when I was on the House floor and asked him, why is the trainer in the gym on the House voting? And to which Joe Kennedy laughed and said, he's a member from Oklahoma. And after that, we became friends. In fact, our daughters are writing a book together about bipartisanship. But when Josh asked me to join a bipartisan group called No Labels, that's when we really started seeing that there's a lot of common ground that we can work together. Yeah, as I said in my opening statement, that we all make decisions based on how we're raised and our life experiences. And Josh and I was raised different, just like everybody on this dais is raised different than me, and we've had different life experiences. But we all believe in that flag right there behind you. And what I say is, as long as you love that flag as much as I do, and you're willing to die for that flag like I am, we can work together. We can set the differences aside, and we can work together. And Josh represents that too. Just for him being here, you guys know, he's got a primary in New Jersey. He's not a senator, has 6 years. He's up every 2 years, and he's here. That's a friend that says, hey, my political differences are beside, I still like you. I cannot tell you how many members on the Democrat Party, which I love and respect, and I understand the politics, have came up to me since this nomination and say, hey, I love you, but I'm running for this office, but I'm running for this office, but I'm up for re-election. I'd be killed in my state. In most cases, I would support you, but. And it drives me crazy, but when you see a real friend like that, run through fire for the guy.
So again, this is a nomination hearing, and from my standpoint, when you're trying to select somebody to run an operation, you want somebody with integrity, somebody with that passion toward the mission, keeping this nation safe, having this love for this country. It's also, I think, incredibly important that when you're serving the administration, you have a good relationship with the president. It doesn't work so well. I know you've got a good relationship with the president, and you told me a story, and I want you to repeat that story of your son who was grievously injured and a visit that the President of the United States made to that hospital. I want you to tell the story, because I think it's important that people understand why you are loyal to President Trump. I'd like them to hear a different side of President Trump as well.
Yeah.
But I think also that'll serve you well as his Secretary of Homeland Security. But just tell that story.
Ron, I'm going to try getting through it without crying then. It's not about President Trump, it's about my son. So my son was a really world-class athlete, and January 17th of 2020, which mind you was an election year, he had a really serious brain injury. Woke up 26 hours later, and he's a different kid. We almost lost him. For 26 hours, he had an extremely low pulse. There was a time they thought that they lost his pulse altogether. And when he woke up, he was just different. I mean, here you had a world-class athlete that wrestled all over the world since he was 12 years old, and he couldn't touch his nose. He couldn't walk without shuffling his feet. He had short-term memory loss. He couldn't control his muscles. Couldn't add 5+3. He was in high school at that time. Had to learn how to read, walk, everything. And the president found out about it, and he gave me a call immediately. And one thing that the president joked about was, like, he said, let me get this straight. He doesn't know who you and Christy are, but he knew who I was, because the only question you got right is who the president was. And he said, Trump, with this cocky grin on his face. And but the president didn't understand the severity of it, but he heard it in my voice, and immediately he went to work. I told him we had to get to Bakersfield, California, to the Center for Neural Skills, which is one of the best neural rehabilitation places in the world. And the president offered to send his plane, his personal plane. This is the president of the United States. And I said, sir, we can't fly. We got to drive. We get there, and he called almost every day for 2 weeks checking on Jim. And then he says, I'm going to come see him. And now this is the middle of the election. This is Bakersfield, California. Really not an area he's got to go campaign. he took the time to come up there and see Jim. And the senator told us that the short-term memory loss something would trigger it. Some big event would eventually trigger where he'd start retaining stuff. Until then, he was still having issues. And the president arrived, and of course there was cameras and everybody around, and of course none of the media ever talked about it, which was funny because the president called him on stage and talked to him. And then we went to the back, and the president didn't talk to me. He didn't know I was in, I mean, he didn't care if I was in the room. Here's a guy that's been over in his ties about as long as my son because my son's, it stunted his growth, and so he's 5'3" the rest of his life. And his team came to him twice and said, sir, we got to go, we got to go. On the third time they came over to him, he looked at him and he says, hey, I guarantee you that plane won't leave without me. And for the next 15 minutes, he did nothing but love on my son. That one incident jogged his memory. And from then on, he started retaining things. And Jim's attitude went from this, we're going to get through it, to this, I'm going to get through it. And every week, if not most days, the president would call and ask how he could help. Ask, how's his buddy doing? How's Jim doing? He didn't do it for publicity. He didn't do it for any show. He was running in one of the toughest elections he had been in, and the guy was still that concerned about my son. When we got released for a little bit, we had to go back. When we got released a little bit, the president said, come to Mar-a-Lago and see me. We go down there, and it's amazing. And when we're leaving, dang it, I hate getting emotional. See, if I talk about my kids, I get emotional. Other than that, you can't make me cry. But my kids can make me emotional.
That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. So anyways, he grabbed my son and he said, do you know why I love your dad? Do you know why I love your dad? Chrissy tells the story better than I do. And he goes, no, sir. He goes, because he loves you. Because of you. Because of you. Man, he didn't do it for any other reason. I mean, here's the president of the United States, and he did it just because he cared. And so when you want to say why he's a friend, yeah, we were acquaintances before that. We've been friends ever since.
The American people need to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Welcome.
So Markwayne Mullin steps up during this hearing, and instead of going after policy, he changes direction completely. He starts talking about character, about integrity, about what kind of person should actually be leading in America. And then he points something out that honestly surprised a lot of people. Right there in the room was Josh Gottheimer, a Democrat, not just present, but supporting the nominee. Now think about that for a second. In today's political climate, where everything is division, 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 you got a Democrat showing up for a Republican publicly. That takes guts. That tells you something real is happening behind the scenes that we don't always see on TV. And honestly, that's the kind of leadership this country has been missing. Then comes the part that really stood out. The nominee shares how his friendship with Gottheimer started back in 2017. And it wasn't political. It was human. A simple misunderstanding at the gym, a joke, a moment that turned into a real friendship. They didn't agree on everything, but they found common ground. And that's something a lot of people in Washington have forgotten how to do. Here's the line that hit hardest. As long as you love that flag, we can work together. That right there is the foundation of this country. Not agreement on every issue, not party loyalty above everything else, but a shared belief in the country itself. And then Mullin says something that a lot of people don't want to admit. He talks about how many politicians came up to him privately and said, I support you, but I can't say it publicly because of politics. That's the problem. Not disagreement, but fear. Fear of backlash. Fear of losing elections. Fear of stepping out of line. And meanwhile, you've got someone like Gottheimer showing up anyway. That's rare. But then the entire tone of the hearing changes. Because the nominee shares a deeply personal story about his son, a devastating brain injury, a family on the edge, a child that had to relearn how to walk, talk, even think. And in that moment, Donald Trump steps in, not for cameras, not for headlines, not for politics, but as a human being. He called. He checked in constantly. He offered help, even his own plane. He showed up in person during an election season when he didn't have to. And here's the part that matters most. There are no cameras behind the scenes, no media coverage, no PR stunt, just a man taking time to care about someone else's child. And the moment that changed everything, when Trump spent time with the boy, encouraging him, connecting with him, it actually helped trigger his memory recovery. Think about that. In a moment of crisis, leadership wasn't about speeches or policies. It was about presence. And yet, you didn't hear about this story on the news, did you? Of course not, because it doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't match the image they want to paint. But moments like this reveal something deeper. Look, politics aside, this video showed 3 things. Asterisk real friendship across party lines. Asterisk real courage to stand publicly for what you believe. Asterisk and a side of leadership that goes beyond politics. That's what people are hungry for right now. Not more division, not more noise, but something real. What do you think? Does this change how you see leadership in Washington? Do we need more moments like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more real, unfiltered breakdowns like this, hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because stories like this, they matter.